Alright, is this thing on? I've forgotten how YouTube works. Hello, welcome to another video, the first that I'm making in 2026. I hope you guys had a wonderful holiday period, the Christmas, the New Year, all of that. I was sick with COVID over the winter break. As you can maybe hear still in my voice a little bit, I am not 100% still, but I am getting much, much better. But yeah, hope you guys had a wonderful break. And there are certain things that I missed in the world of EU5 while I was gone. So we're going to go over a few of those. We're going to start with this one. I did cover this video. This is the video where my voice started going. But we had obviously the post from Yuan basically asking what I think the biggest issues are now. I made a video on this already, but I didn't go through some of the responses that he made because he waited about a week before he responded to any of them. Merticus saying that diplomacy malices and bonuses could be added. For example, things like royal marriage not really affecting things as much as they could be. Threatened by rival, mutual rival, defended territory, ages and battle modifiers. So he's going to check what's missing, and hopefully those are going to come in the 1.1 Rossback update. We had another one here. Biggest issue is that every market has an abundance of everything by about 1450, especially some rare RGOs like Amber, very spices, gold, silver, etc. And Yuan agrees with that. Every market seems almost the same, so he's looking maybe at fixing some of that. Biggest issue is the AI aggressiveness, not how aggressive it is, but it's sometimes suicidal and ignores coalitions. So Yuan here saying that it's a valid point, even though coalitions tend to be too weak, the AI needs to take them into account more. So they've reworked tiny rebellions to be less annoying in 1.1, though, which is quite nice as well. And then finally from this, cavalry too strong, levies too weak, infantry too weak. Basically the standard, we're going to get this for a while, probably. Military rebalance. So we're going to get a nerfed cavalry again in 1.1. Hopefully we'll see that kind of work a bit better than it did before. So that would be nice. But yeah. We have also got over the winter holidays a couple of threads that Yuan made. Let's call the one that we just looked at the Holiday Tinto Talk #1, and we also have now the Holiday Winter Tinto Talk #2. He was back from break without PC over the holidays. He has 45 pages of feedback to read in detail. That was some of the ones that we just saw there. A lot of linked threads and posts to process as well. Anyway, current plans for how Tinto Talks will be this week. He's going to do a big feedback reply post from last week's thread, a roadmap for 1.1 Rossback, and some proposed levy changes. Next week from Wednesday the 7th, which is today, that's why I'm making this video, because we've got a new Tinto Talk, back to normal weekly detail. So, process of what we're going to see. Today he wants to talk a little bit about how the process for development at Tinto and how they've been working in the last few months. The process has been based on the idea that if we, as developers, have found and fixed an issue, then the players should get a fix as soon as possible. He's been frustrated in the past about, oh, we have this fixed 2 months ago, but there's no update scheduled for another month, which is something he doesn't think is ideal. Basically, there's been a lot of community sentiment that, oh, they're just throwing fixes at the wall and seeing what sticks. And that, I think this sort of explains the rationale behind what they're actually doing, which is, oh, we have fixed this thing that the community has been complaining about. We need to push this fix to the community so it's fixed, and then they won't be complaining about it anymore. And sometimes those fixes are coming with problems, or if they push a patch and there is something that is what the community considers an easy fix that is not in, then the community will be like, why didn't you fix this as well? Which obviously comes with its own downsides as well. Anyway, that meant they fixed urgent issues targeting the development branch with 30 to 50 fixes coming in each day to that branch. Then at a weekly basis, they branch off to a new patch branch, which gets heavily QA'd for a few days, cherry-picking any critical blockers, and then verifying the changes made to that branch is correct. After a few days, the patch branch was put live. Not every issue is not urgent or can be wrapped up in a short time frame, so they get targeted to a further patch down the line. What they failed with the system is that they got a little bit too ambitious and attempted to fix things that could have been saved for later patches like 1.1. Seeing big complaints, I guess his PTSD from Imperator went into let's fix all we can ASAP. So it looks like maybe we're going to get a different philosophy of updates and patches going forward, which is probably why we haven't had an update over the winter holiday, other than, the fact that they're all on holiday. But it doesn't look like Johan is comfortable just doing nothing for a while. He's always tweaking and stuff. So, anyway, now they say feedback like, why don't they just focus on X? Well, two simple answers. Everyone has their own opinion on what X should be. I think it should be renamed back to Twitter. No, not everyone can do the same thing as a game developer. Not many people can do more than their speciality. Even putting an AI programmer on fixing UI bugs would not really be feasible. Yeah, this is another thing that I see quite often. Why are you focusing on this thing when this thing is an issue? And it's like, well, the person that's working on fixing this thing can't actually do this other thing that you think is a bigger issue. So if they're not working on this, then what are they doing? Like, they still got to work. So that's usually that comes up with UI. It usually comes up with like graphical things and such. Like, yes, the graphics designer is very much interested in working on the balance changes to levies. Yeah, for sure. Also, why isn't X fixed yet? Well, they're working through it, and processing the bug reports takes time. Reported issues need to be reproduced, which can be very, very difficult, especially if you don't share save games, and sometimes bugs that you encounter, even if you have a save game, and you pass that to somebody else, that bug doesn't happen again. Some bugs are fixed by saving and reloading, which doesn't mean they're not bugs, and doesn't mean they shouldn't be fixed. But it means that it's very hard to reproduce, which means it's very, very hard to find the issue and fix it. Verify that they're actually an issue by the QA, which has been another issue as well. There's some things that have been reported as this is a bug, and if it is working as the code should say this is how it works, then it's being reported as working as designed, even though the design is like, oh, it really shouldn't work that way. So working as designed, but design is a bit shit, is something that has happened a few times as well. Another developer needs to actually figure out why it doesn't work, then make a fix for it. Sometimes it takes 15 minutes, yay for those, and sometimes it has to spend days to track down a behavior. What they are changing with the process is to try and be more careful with anything that can change the balance and have them target bigger patches than the weekly bug fixes where they want to do weekly bug fixing issues. Very, very good philosophy moving forward. Balances, bigger patches, bugs, smaller patches. I think we can all agree with that one. A few responses to this as well. What about things that were broken at launch like Nahua and Japan? Reformed Nahua was something that was reported, but the work required to fix it was not deemed as a higher priority than other reports they had to deal with. He made the decision as you have to prioritize bugs from how many people they impact and how much work it is to fix it. Yeah, bugs that are affecting, let's say, the New World, Sub-Saharan Africa, probably in here as well, just aren't as heavily played by people, so those bug fixes are less of a priority than, say, if something's screwing up France and England and Bohemia. It's just the way that it is. But that one specifically, the Nahua bug, is fixed for 1.1. They also, it was also a fix that was deemed way too risky for a hotfix, as the solutions they had significant change of bricking save games, which obviously they have really wanted to avoid. Quite a lot of time spent post-release has been things you've not seen in patch notes to make the architecture more robust and able to handle major content changes without bricking people's saves, which is also very fair. Do you plan to rebalance the AI fort building? They're rebalancing the economy. Part of that is to make forts less good to have everywhere. I think a good way of changing this would be to allow, do the same thing as Imperator, where you have a fort limit per province, and then if you go over that, then the forts are costing a lot more than they would otherwise. That, I think, would be a good idea. Or have forts be incredibly expensive, but then have cities be able to build city walls, which would be like much weaker forts. That might be a vibe, might be an idea. I don't know. That's just, back of the hand, back of the napkin kind of ideas there. Example, returning land in peace deals was a very useful feature in EU4, and it's not in EU5. There is a mod that adds it, which is quite nice. Obviously, can't get achievements with it, though. And then they're adding that for 1.2, 1.3 plans. Hopefully that gets added into 1.1 rather than delaying it further. But yeah, another one. The Tinto Talk number 3, Holiday Tinto Talk number 3. This is from the 30th of December. So, background for Yuan. He's been making historical grand strategy games since the end of the last millennium, and for almost all of those, the goal has always been for the games to try and guide and follow historical paths. So this thread is about railroading, let's be honest. He can only recall one time they actually wanted to have the game mechanics be an entirely emergent narrative, and that was for EU3, where they literally removed the historical events they had in EU2. Sometimes in the Hearts of Iron series, they tried to make the simulation be guided entirely by mechanics, and the AI should reason out optimal tactics. However, we always had to direct the AI in that game with cripple scripts, as the players wanted World War II to play out the same way almost all of the time. However, did they do railroading in EU4? First of all, they had Lucky Nations, which obviously is not in EU5. That's a good thing, in my opinion. I hated that mechanic. To make sure some countries had special bonuses, so they always performed better. Also, the AI was very good at conquering what it had claims on. Related to that was the heavy use of dynamic historical events to give out claims and on creating things like the Iberian Union. The EU4 AI was also very great at unifying its culture group, so we had to stop it at times with historical friend mechanics. And now, what about EU5? The goal was to create an even more detailed narrative with situations, creating railroaded mechanics that forces a certain narrative on the game. Some of them work in this regard, like the Rise of the Turks and the 100 Years' War, and some of them do not work great, like the War of Religions. The AI has not been good enough to expand and grow countries until 1.0.1, where it became semi-decent at it. Now what? Well, besides the fact that the AI is a tad bit too aggressive, they don't get the narratives that they desire yet. The narrative goals for the game include the following, and this is what we will constantly try to improve. So, this is what they want to have happen in most games. Holy Roman Empire should not get gobbled up immediately, but keep being fragmented until the last age. Hordes should fall apart and disappear by the mid-game. Ottoman Empire that grows deep into the Balkans and Levant, creating a France-level threat in the southeast. Russia should unite and go towards Siberia. Western European powers should build strong colonial empires, and Europe should grow to be more advanced and powerful than the rest of the world as ages go by. Other important historical narratives are things they want to see, but it's not something they view as mandatory to happen as often. So, again, this is not a 100% of games will have all of these things happen. I would hate to see that, personally. But things that are not mandatory to happen as often as the above: the formation of Spain and Poland-Lithuania, and the emergence of Netherlands and Prussia. Okay, fair enough. I had what, in my opinion, was a pretty good response to this. In what percentage of hands-off games would you consider these narrative pushes to be successful? For instance, take the Ottomans. Do you want them to be the big boss threat pushing into the Balkans and Levant in 80% of games, or 50% of games? I totally understand that people want to see the Ottomans succeed in every single game. Like, some people want that, and that's fine. For me, though, the railroad needs to have detours on it. I don't want to see the same map in every single game that I play. I would love to see another Beylik succeed in the Ottomans' place sometimes, or the Romans survive and thrive. And this goes for every area of the map. Sometimes I want to see some wacky stuff happen. Sometimes maybe I want to see, oh, England actually managed to win the 100 Years' War this time instead of France eventually beating them back. Sometimes I want to see Poland and Lithuania form, but sometimes I want to see the Teutonic Order win and become, a big Baltic power. Sometimes I would like to see things like Aragon win in Iberia. I think there are, and again, I have been sick and now the throat is going. This is great. There are certain levels or like percentage of games where these things happen. I think there is a target that should be aimed for. But I think that percentage is different for everybody. So, I'm saying, if we have 20 different important railroads and there's an 80% chance for each of them to happen, you get a strong Ottomans, Russia, United Spain, United Great Britain, fragmented HRE, Netherlands, War Religions, etc. in about 1% of games. So if every single one of these has an 80% chance, you get all of them happening in about 1% of the time. If each of them would have a 95% probability to happen, then you'd get all of these things happening in about a third of the games. I'm not really great at maths. Someone can figure out if that's all fair and true and stuff. If it's a 99% probability, then 20% of the games will not see all the following, and I'm willing to bet a significant amount of money on seeing threads like "Game is broken, Spain never forms." Yeah, I feel like some people will probably say that regardless, but I think I don't know about these maths. I don't know. These numbers don't seem likely to me. Um, 99% probability for each of the things happening. Each of these happening. I feel like that's pretty close to basically 100%. Where this isn't these aren't XCOM numbers, are they? I don't know. Um, but either way, that's I'd like to hear your guys' opinion on this as well. Like, what percentage of games do you want to see all of these things happening? Do you want to see absolutely every single game that, the big winner in Russia is Muscovy, or do you sometimes want to see it be Kiev, or do you want to see the Golden Horde survive, or do you want to see it as in Novgorod, or that kind of way? Do you want to see the Ottomans win every single game, or do you want to see the Romans sometimes survive? Like that's kind of where I'm at. Like I don't want to see the exact same map every single game. When will Paradox acknowledge the problem with separatist war mechanics where countries that aren't supporting any rebels without any warning or option get called into a war on separatist side where the separatist entity is the war leader? Yeah, that can be quite annoying. It's going to bring up a call to arms that you can reject now, which is also very nice. Obviously, would be much better that way. So, yeah, fix is coming. Nice. Can the Rise of the Turks really said to be working well while the Ottomans never take the Levant? Yes, because the Rise of the Turks doesn't really include the Levant or Egypt. Maybe there should be another situation for that situation. I don't know. The situation is there to create a strong power to defeat the Romans. I think it generally works well enough for that. We're talking about the real reality of the Papal States not being an ocean-going naval power of any consequence, plus being a small dab in the middle of the Mediterranean, which is a locked sea, placating city-states, kingdoms, and empires, using Italy as a trampling playground, blah, 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 blah. Basically, the Pope won't explore and colonize in 1.1 with the Western colonizers' game rule, so they're getting mechanically locked away from that if you use that game rule. I don't know. Would I use it? I'm not sure. Maybe we'll see. If it leads to a more historical map, maybe it's fine. Not all Western European powers plays, only those who have the infrastructure, the long-term political will, and the ocean-going vessels to build strong colonial empires. The Pope, Gelre, and small inconsequential states should have no business wasting money building strong colonial empires. So yeah, the Pope's too rich to others, and the rule is also that the AI needs a tax base of 100 before they will try and colonize, which I feel like that's something that every country can really like. Even if you're a small one province miner, as in group of locations, you're going to be able to get to 100 tax base, 1600, and then you'll be able to see things like the Gelres trying to colonize. I mean, like, historically there were more colonies in the Americas than just the big four of England, France, Spain, Portugal, right? Scotland historically, famously, went bankrupt trying to colonize. Denmark had colonies over there. Sweden had colonies over there. Like, it was attempted by many, many countries, and just that they weren't as successful doesn't mean that they shouldn't try. Then again, if we're talking about strong colonial empires, then yeah, you're not going to be seeing more than the big four. If we're talking about specifically strong colonial empires, rather than just a couple of islands in the Caribbean. There was another thread, the road to 1.1 Rosbach. So we'll see what we're going to be getting in the 1.1 update, which will be coming sometime this month. The 1.1 Rosbach update is planned for sometime in early February. Okay, I said it wrong. Early February, not this month. It's January. Apologies. Besides containing a lot of balance changes and fixes elsewhere, they're also aiming to improve gameplay, content, UI, and art as well. Go into more details and explain new features every Wednesday of 2026 until it releases. And we start off with somebody not wearing armor. Or early 14th century garb in the late game. Nice. Good to see that. Also, it looks like new hair. I don't think we've seen this one before either. Gameplay, new diplomatic abilities to transfer one of your subjects to another country, ways to destroy defensive leagues, and transferring territories between two of your subjects. Awesome. Especially if this can be done between colonies. Oh boy. Oh, amazing. Amazing. Annexation speeds depend on diplomatic spending. Okay. Countries can now reject hegemony demands. Okay. Code systems for religion have been reworked, so you can now reform away from doom. Colonial charters will be reworked, so instead of going to a certain percentage of your dominant culture, religion of pops, it now keeps track of how many pops you have sent, etc., so you can get minorities in your colonies. That's awesome as well. Abilities to provoke rebels to start an uprising now, and the ability to change your culture's opinion of another culture your own. Speaking of rebels, tiny revolts will no longer form a new country and start an entire war, but instead impact the location they would have spawned in when they reach 100%. I'm totally fine with that. Game will also allow countries to get bonuses or penalties to how they're impacted by proximity in certain topographies. Like, for example, Austria getting some mountain hills plateau bonuses. That's fair. They've added coin laws that impact what metals you use for coins and get inflation from. Of course, Sweden can make copper coins, which will absolutely never be a bad idea. As mentioned in the 22nd of December post, they're reworking rivals, fixing levies, mercs, and regulars balance, and much more. Just throwing this in the middle of the post is interesting. They're also working on a complacency mechanic, reworking expeditions from being a purely script-based system to being a code system, and adding in a slavery mechanic distribution system. Complacency mechanic we will learn more about in a little while, because that's going to be in the Tinto talk that came out today, I think. Content design, new disaster for Brandenburg because they needed more pain. Unique advances and policies to some German countries. A lot of focus on Japan and China mechanics have been done, including Sengoku Jidai and the Red Turban Rebellions. Nice, good to see that. Manchuria is also getting a fair bit of improvements, and the Tengri religion is getting some good gods as well. The Americas, they've reworked the area in Brazil, improved the resource and food setup for both the Andes and Mesoamerican regions. The HRE is seeing a fair amount of attention as well. What attention this is, I don't know. Working with improvements to other situations like the Western Schism and the Council of Trent. For the UI, they've added an Army and Navy template builder. Oh my gosh, very lovely to see that. Added a nicer end-of-war dialogue showing losses like in EU4. Good, I missed that. Also added rally points for raising levies. Amazing. Recruiting mercs have quite a lot less clicking than for the average player as well. Good. Hopefully they're a bit cheaper as well. Now more settings when it comes to music. They've added a music player. Okay, so 1.1 is looking to be incredible so far. Alerts can be permanently discarded now. Another big complaint that I've seen a lot of. You can restore them from a special UI if you need them. The game will no longer reset filters to what the game thinks is best when opening the screen again, but you can now pin which filters you want in each screen. Amazing. More abilities to manage the formation of a unit. A toggle for units to always auto-balance as well. Amazing. Unit UI will no longer obscure half the screen for multiple units. Fantastic. You can have a condensed version of the UI as well. Also added lots and lots of other small quality of life things to the UI. I love me some quality of life. They also mentioned a new river map mode. Good. Also improved the road map mode and added several other new map modes like coalition map mode, maximum control, and many more. Beautiful. New loading screen for 1.1, which I believe is this one. I'm not sure. It could be. It might not be. Show up before release. They also added some European 18th century hats, wigs, and clothes, not to mention many icons for new advances and modifiers and more. Looking forward to seeing what the more is. There's one comment from this thread that I want to talk about as well. Colonization of the New World is entirely too fast. For instance, pre-1800 and everything in North America is colonized by a player, yet historically very little was colonized west of the Appalachian Mountains. And Johan saying, yeah, needs to be tweaked down. Later colonization abilities are way too good. Alright, on to this one here, which came out as of talking right now, a little over an hour ago. I'm going to also click refresh, because why not? So, hello everyone, Happy New Year. Welcome to the first Tinto Talk of 2026. This week, they'll go through some of the different gameplay changes for the Rossback 1.1 update. First of all, privateering. Previously, it's mainly been a way to harass other countries, reduce their maritime presence, and if you had the ability to do it, raid some slaves. In the next update, though, you will now be able to get some gold from the area your privateers are active in. Of course, the same type of buildings that block slave raiders also block privateers from getting gold as well. So this definitely seems a bit more viable to use. I found privateers to be entirely ignorable. Before, they were just an annoyance that all you really could do, I think, is just, I'm going to put more ships to boost my maritime presence to overturn the privateers. It never seemed like it was interactive in the way that it is in E4, for example. So, yeah, hopefully we see a little bit more action here. Topography bonuses. As mentioned during the roadmap, they've also given Austria some buffs to one of their advances to make them have less of a problem with having an empire in the Alps. Let's see who and what else should get any potential topography benefits or penalties. Switzerland is the one that comes to mind. Switzerland should have mountains, hills, plateau proximity impact. Minus 50 seems like a lot, but to be honest, fair enough. This is also in Age 2, so you're not going to start the game with this. Small revolts. Nobody likes to run a large empire with a standing army close to 100,000 and then getting an uprising in 3 locations with a total of 85 men. Now instead, if there's less than 5,000 pops backing a rebellion, they'll instead give a debuff to the locations they have support in. The 5,000 threshold is subject to change. Maybe it should scale with the size of the country as well, potentially. Fair enough. So you get monthly prosperity and monthly control going down. What about max control? I wonder if that is going to be a thing as well there. Or I guess rebellion chance also already reduces max control, or satisfaction does at least. So maybe that's okay actually. Slavery market distribution. Previously, slaves got assigned to locations as they got traded or captured into the market, and using the intermarket migration system just felt entirely wrong, both from a gameplay perspective, where they wouldn't move to where they're wanted, and from an immersion perspective as well. In 1.1, though, there is an internal slave distribution inside each market, where any location which wants slaves can get up to 250 slaves from a location with a surplus in the same market. Numbers are currently a placeholder, so it could base it on whatever we want. I feel like I don't see the need to limit it. I think if you have a need for slaves, and let's say we're talking about the Caribbean, right? I'm shipping a bunch of slaves into the Caribbean. They're all going into the market center because that's where the market is, and bringing the slaves from Africa into, say, Havana. I think at that point, with Havana, the location having, and I don't remember if that's like a good port or whatever. I'm just saying, all right, Havana, the location has massive surplus of slave pops. They should distribute across the entirety of Caribbean in the Havana market based on what locations have requirements for them. Say if I've built plantations, and it shouldn't be limited to just 250. I've built a plantation in this location that is in the same market as where I've got a massive surplus of slaves. They should just move there. Maybe increase the cost of... You know what you could do? Is have the cost of plantation buildings include slaves in the cost. So you're basically spending more for these plantations. And that spending more could be essentially a fee for purchasing the slaves from the market center. I don't see the need for this limit. I really don't. We have a new threat system. Every country has a view over how threatening another country is, which depends on their economical base, their military, and their population all relative to you. There's also a factor reducing their relative threat depending on how far away their borders are from you. Having a country that is a threat as a rival is beneficial to you as well, but the rival can easily manufacture a casus belli on you. Okay, good to know. Screenshot of the new threat map mode from the Office multiplayer game where he is playing as Venice. So complacency is that's right there. We're gonna see what that means here. But yeah, if somebody has rivaled you, you can make a CB on them, which seems interesting. but economy comparison and then military comparison is actually being shown here as well. Okay. And then obviously the population comparison as well. And 1.8 is giving red color, so that seems like low numbers are pretty much the vibe here. As our rival, they gain complacency, or less complacency, I guess. They get positive prestige and they get positive diplo rep. Okay. Biggest threats are Austria, Hungary, and France. Two Sicilies and Bohemia are also threats that they have to consider. Okay, cool. Complacency. One of the major complaints with our games is that there are no mechanics to simulate why empires decline. Our new complacency mechanic is one of the ways that they want to deal with it. Complacency increases if you don't have any outside threats, primarily from not having threatening rivals, which is reduced by having threatening rivals. That makes sense. Being targeted by a coalition, losing war, etc. The impact of high complacency is you 20 tax. Proximity cost plus 100%. No. Oh, wow. Yeah, you don't want to be 100% complacent. Prestige decay, I don't really care about. Army tradition decay, okay. Efficiency cabinet minus 100. Loyalty of subjects minus 30. Trade efficiency minus 50. Holy bad. That's awful. Prestige decay got removed earlier today from testing feedback. Fair enough. Yeah, no, this makes sense. Actually, yeah, removing. If I am so giga powerful that I am becoming complacent, that's a pretty prestigious, spot to be in the world. If I have all of this power and wealth and stuff that I am capable of being super complacent, then you know what? Yeah, removing that seems like good. Glad to see this. And what we're getting. Complacency is going down by minus 0.05. Okay, but we need to see lack of threatening rivals is plus 0.2. He's rivaled the biggest threat to him, and it's minus 0.05. So there's got to be other ways of reducing complacency. Primarily from not having threatening rivals. If this is the primary one, being targeted by a coalition seems like something you want to have happen now. Interesting. Okay. Be interesting to see how this plays out for sure. Obviously, we've got some UI changes coming as well. Some fun UI changes in 1.1. Price in market tooltip, where you can now see the effective supply and demand. It impacts the price, and you can also see tooltip every point of the price graph to see the historical prices. Oh, that's cool. That's nice. I am very happy with that one. Also reworked entirely how the economy is tracked for estates, so you can now see all factors and thus determine how well they are doing as well. That's also quite nice. And then in 1.0.1, they started showing production efficiencies in the building screen for existing buildings. In 1.1, they'll also show the potential production efficiency of a building in a specific location as well. Love that. That's something I really wanted, so really happy to see that. They also started tracking and displaying the total attrition losses in a war, and you can see that in the tooltip. Those aren't okay. Total attrition losses at the top, but it needs to be broken up by who is losing. Like, look at this coalition of motherfuckers. I want to see this be broken up. I feel like this might still need a little bit of work. Honestly, a good way of looking at what kind of information the player wants to see in this is to open Scanderbeg. Let me see if I can open a random Scanderbeg and we can show that. Okay, so forgive the fact that this is Anbana, so don't worry about the fact that all of these attackers and defenders are showing tags rather than, the names of the countries. Ignore that. But essentially, this is the information that people want to see, right? We want to see total casualties dealt in battles, obviously. How many battles dealt total, how many dealt in battle total from the attackers, and total from the defenders. Daily casualties, it'd be nice to have. Attacker attrition casualties, defender attrition casualties. Showing that, also quite nice. Kill death ratio, quite nice. And then if I click in here as well, get a little bit more information as well. It's showing all of the different battles, how many losses on each side, etc. The breakdown. This is something I think could be shown in a tooltip. And then if I click on statistics, you're able to see also, again, forgive the fact that they're all in tags, how many total casualties, how many total battle casualties, how many total attrition casualties, broken down by every single country that is taking part, as well as their participation score. Sure, you can show the stack wipes as well if you want. That I don't think is necessary, but this is the kind of information that we as multiplayer fans want to see, and I don't think this is something that single player people would be like aghast at being able to see as well. So this is something I think maybe could be looked at as, you know, what we might want to see in a battle screen. Obviously make it look nice, because Scandirbeg's obviously doesn't look nice with like UI and stuff, but yeah, that would be nice. You know, total attrition losses, I want to see that broken down by country, and I don't think I should have to a tooltip, like, again, you know, there's work that could be done still. Maybe this is your new favorite, but the ability to set which filter should be the default in each screen, which it'll pick when you open it again. That would be very nice, for sure. Yes, specifically for characters, but maybe less so now that, you know, the whole marriage character thing has changed a lot. Maybe, but no, having filters is great. Many more mechanics, content, and UI changes in 1.1, and next week there'll be a meaty dev diary with lots of new UI improvements shown off in detail. Love it. Fantastic stuff. Fantastic stuff. And of course, there are some comments to go through as well. Hoping that overpowered Kyiv and underpowered Lithuania get fixed eventually, unless there were players involved there. So players in Poland, Muscovy, Teutonic Order, Bohemia, and Hungary are around, but nobody really wants the lands. I think that's kind of not seeing the issue with overpowered Kyiv, because it is obviously an issue. Funnily enough, I've seen some people think that is somehow my fault. And also that they think it is something to do with the current political situation as why Kyiv is overpowered, which is completely delusional. But anyway, I think the actual issue is the Golden Horde, because Kyiv starts as a tributary of the Golden Horde, which means that attacking them means you have to fight the Golden Horde, which at the start of the game is quite powerful. They have levies of about... Not levies, sorry. They have a professional army of about 6,000 horsemen, which are very, very strong. But I think in 1.1 we saw in one of these posts that, firstly, cavalry is going to get a nerf, which will, you know, make it easier to attack Kyiv. And also they want to see the Golden Horde explode a bit more often, which, again, will impact Kyiv. So we will see what happens there. This probably won't remain overpowered as much as it is now. I think in CK2, doesn't Kyiv start with like one province only? So, and that's in the 1337 start date. So I don't know the exact history of what this is supposed to be like. But yeah, we'll see if changes get made there. Idea, maybe sometimes rebels should attempt to cooperate and revolt at the same time. Right now, rebels are hardly a threat ever. I think the change would make them increasingly dangerous. So one way could be for all revolts at a greater than X amount should revolt at the same time as soon as one revolts. I think this would be really, really good. I also think, while it was kind of annoying in Imperator, mostly because when you took a location that had very low loyalty, like you could start at that low loyalty, which is why it was annoying there. But I do think that if you have a rebel, a location that has rebels in it that is greater than, say, 80 or 90%, you could make it impossible to delete the fort there. Because that's kind of what makes rebels trivial, is they don't take any fortifications. Because you just delete them before they rebel, if you're paying attention. And that makes rebels, like, trivial. It would be very annoying to not be allowed to delete the forts, but that could be a way to non-trivialize them again. I don't know. But I do like this idea. That's really good. Traditionalist Leo. Blaze Armada. Proximity cost plus 100 for complacency, even at maximum, feels extremely high. Why does complacency even affect proximity at all? It doesn't make much sense. And Yuan is agreeing here. Complacency should impact research speed negatively, not proximity. So that one looks like it is changing as well. Cool. Good. Complacency mechanic makes me worried. Half the time when I play outside of Europe, I already have the prestige debuff. Again, the prestige isn't going to be in there. But they've reworked Rivals 100%. So you can now pick any non-subject within diplomatic range. Fantastic-ish. I feel like, good lord, if you are starting as France, you are going to have a list of rivals 17 billion light years long. Unless all of the HRE counts as vassals, counts as subjects to the HRE Emperor. If that's the case, then fine. Maybe you shouldn't be able to rival individual HRE. Maybe you can make it so you can't rival HRE miners if you're not in the HRE, unless they are electors. Because I want to see, Brandenburg should be allowed to rival Poland, for example. But I don't think France should be able to rival frickin' Bamberg or Cruisenvolts. Something like that would be silly. And then the final thing we're going to talk about, this has been a long video, is this one here. There's a mod that adds market access, control, and crown power to a location in the building screen. I'm going to look for this mod because that sounds amazing. Super helpful since so many buildings affect those values. You should add those as well. And he's poked his UX team to look at the mod on Monday. Great. Fantastic. Love to see that. I am of the opinion that it is not egregious. It's not a bad thing. If there is a mod that is made that changes the UI and in a just amazing way, I don't think it is a bad thing for the main game to be like, that's a good idea. Yoink. I don't think that's a bad thing at all. And I know there's more than just one modder that does UI, but the one I keep going back to is Agamade. He made some fantastic UI mods for Imperator, for CK. He's the guy who made the full screen barbershop, for example. And I'm pretty sure the CK team took that full screen barbershop and made their own version of it. This is the kind of thing I think is totally fine. Looking at what UI modders are making and taking those and putting them in the main game. That's fine. I don't think that's a problem. I know some people have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with that. I think it's a good thing. So yeah, if this works, if this is good, yeah, the main game should do it as well. But anyway, that is all we have for today. We're gonna go back to this art because I really like it. And yeah, thank you all very much for watching. If you didn't unsubscribe during the winter break because I didn't make any bloody videos, thanks for that. Appreciate it. If you did, maybe you want to resubscribe. That would be nice. Obviously, I am getting better. I have still got some issues with my lungs that were not fully out of the woods yet, but I am getting better, and I will be continuing to follow in the keeping you up to date with EU5 news and updates, and yeah, hopefully I won't be late with the next one. But anyway, thank you all very much for watching. Hope you guys have a brilliant 2026, and hopefully we get a brilliant EU5 in 2026 as well. Thanks all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.